Your sensei is a man of great honor. I can only hope to be like him. Here's your look at the brand new Diamond Select, Cobra Kai Chozen Toguchi. Decades after the tournament that changed their lives, the rivalry between Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso reignites in the sequel to the Karate Kid films. But with the reappearance of old friends and old enemies, the rivals must work together to protect the young fighters they have trained. This deluxe action figure of Chozen Toguchi is based on his appearance in the Netflix series Cobra Kai. It features over 16 points of articulation, multiple interchangeable hands, and a support stand. It was sculpted by Chris Dahlberg and Rocco Tartamello. Fears Daniel LaRusso's got himself an ally from the unlikeliest of sequels. Just before we get a closer look at the new Cobra Kai Chozen Toguchi, I'd like to thank the folks over at Diamond Select that provided this sample we could have a look at. Taking the tape measure, as I've already started, Chozen is going to stand at about 6 3/4 of an inch in height, or the figure is going to stand 17 centimeters tall. As supporting Sensei to Miyagi-Do, here's what Chozen looks like along with Daniel LaRusso. Looking at the two, you may recognize right away that from the head down, both Chozen and Daniel LaRusso are using the exact same molds. Maybe not as much the case when we looked at Johnny Lawrence, although with Lawrence's case, they have basically removed the sleeve portions from the molds. The torso is going to be the same. The lower trunks are also going to be the same. And with all the cases, it seems to be the case that they're using all the same feet mold. Wasn't as much, though, the case when we looked at Eagle Fang Johnny Lawrence. Obviously, though, while the lower trunks are the same, different t-shirts, so that's a brand new mold there. Bringing in some of the bad guys, here's also as well what Chozen looks like with both John Kreese and the recently looked at Terry Silver. While poor Silver was strapped for accessories, Chozen does seem blessed with some additional plastic. The figure, first of all, comes included with a Miyagi-Do display stand. Thinking, though, it was the same stand that we got from Daniel LaRusso, I wanted to bring it in just to prove a point. It isn't. While the stand, looking at it, is exactly the same, and they've also molded in the exact same white plastic, they have, though, printed it differently on the top. Daniel's, though, had a smaller version of Miyagi-Do, where both the bonsai tree, the Miyagi-Do font, and even like the ringlet around it, are all shrunk down in size. Chozen, though, has the outlining of the green right around the trim of the actual molding of the display stand. They've also as well increased Miyagi-Do karate, and they also have made the size of the bonsai tree larger. Not really sure, though, why they wouldn't have kept it consistent. Obviously, if you're going to be putting these on the shelf, you're all likely going to be putting them all together, and you would notice right away that two stands like this don't look the same. Either way, though, there is the peg placement on the side, and there's also a hole there on the other side that then belongs to this adjustable neck. The adjustable neck, I will admit, is way too long. It actually has 4 individual knuckle joints. Some of these knuckle joints, by the way, are super tight. I've noticed, though, especially with Chozen's, not that it had to be necessarily Chozen's, but that the screws are way too tight to the point where I can't even bend these. I've had actually cases in the past where when trying to move this, I ended up fracturing the plastic on both the sides. And again, I think it had a lot to do with just the fact I was putting too much pressure against it, and it started to snap the plastic. Any one of these, by the way, can be detached. So again, if you feel like that's way too long, any one of them, again, you just remove from the provided posts. I like to generally just detach it and kind of split it by half. And I kind of keep these extra ones laying around if I happen to want to display my other figures with this. And then basically that's going to plug into the provided hole. And then you're probably asking yourself, well, whereabouts that peg's going to go? Turn around. No, not you, Chozen. If you spin the figure around, though, he's got a hole on the back in the exact same place. Like, say, for example, we bring in Johnny Lawrence, just because, again, they're using the exact same holes, the exact same torsos. The placement of the hole is also going to be the exact same place, too. I would have said you don't really necessarily need the display stand, but I suppose really if you did want to put them in any like kicking pose, for example, it's kind of hard sometimes to balance those feet properly. One good thing, at least by using a clear post like this, is it's very subtly placed on the figure's body. He doesn't have, like, for example, a big waist clip that goes around his torso. He doesn't have either like a suspended stand. I mean, it really conceals itself nicely, other than really just the fact that you'd obviously see the post behind the figure's body. At least it puts it in place. He can put the figure in a more dynamic pose without having just an overly obtrusive looking display stand. So let's move that out of the way. The figure also as well comes included with staff. I'm sure if you've gone back and looked at any of my other Karate Kid Cobra Kai figures, sooner rather than later, we've also gotten this staff accessory. The figure also comes included with a pair of tonfas, basically are just like martial arts nightsticks. These are basically molded here in dark plastic. But if you look at them, they look like they're a little bit more of a shinier finish than the actual staff. He does have, don't worry, also gripping hands. So even though he has closed fists right now, they aren't going to serve much of a purpose to hold any one of these accessories. Wait it out. He does have also some gripping hands. He also gets himself a pair of sai. The sai are actually in the same sort of shiny black plastic as the tonfas. And again, obviously, if you want to have the figure holding anything, he does also have gripping hands. The gripping hands, I'm certain, have been packed before with other Cobra Kai figures. Just obviously molded in a different flesh tone color. And again, you just basically pop the hands off. He does also have this hand, and he also has a karate hand. Normally, when you get one like this, you get also the mirror flip pair of that, but you get the other mirror flip of it. In this case, actually, though, with Chozen, you get only one of each one. And again, if you want to change out the hands, just grab the existing fist that he has and just remove it. One thing, again, you'll be reminded of is just how long these posts are in these hands. But then just take the hand that you want to use, plug it back in place. I feel like, actually, hold on a second. There we go. I got Eagle Fang. There you go. Just to show you as an example. Eagle Fang's Johnny Lawrence has the exact same hand. It just happened to be the hand that I was displaying with the figure at the time. And then again, if you want to have the figure displayed, let's say the gripping hands. I'll probably come back to using that more in a moment. That again plugs into his hands like that, or plugs into the forearms. Then you can get yourself something like the sai. Sai just fits into his hands. The plastic, by the way, also on these hands, for the fingers at least, they're fairly easy to bend. So you don't really have to fight too hard to get any one of the weapons for that matter for him to wield. Fairly easy to get him inside his grip. Again, you can also do that as well with the tonfas. Tonfas tend to be ones that fit basically like parallel to the forearm. I can get my own hands out of the way here. But again, basically that's just going to fit inside his grip like that. And then the figure basically has himself a tonfa. Just remove those and move everything, though, out of the way. Getting a closer look, though, at Chozen. Now, obviously, we were first introduced to Chozen when it came to Karate Kid 2. Not really one of my favorite of the Karate Kid films. I actually kind of really like Karate Kid 1 and Karate Kid 3. Even though Karate Kid 3 isn't the greatest of stories, I do kind of like the idea of the introduction of Terry Silver. So that kind of made Karate Kid 3 a little bit better. One thing that's good, at least, though, about Karate Kid 2 was it had a very different story in a different environment. So it broke up the pace of sort of having... It sort of was the equivalent of Temple of Doom. Changing out the scene so that, again, when you had Raiders of the Lost Ark and then you had, of course, Indiana Jones' Last Crusade, the ones on either side of Temple of Doom kind of felt very similar to one another. I don't know why I'm comparing Karate Kid films to Indiana Jones. One thing I will say, though, to the credit of Diamond Select, is this is probably the best likeness we've gotten from any one of the characters from Karate Kid. I feel it looks the most like him. Obviously, Chozen is a little bit older, like all the other characters in Cobra Kai, but I think it really is the best likeness that we've gotten. Probably then after that, I would say, is Johnny Lawrence. Shortly then after that is John Kreese, probably Terry Silver, and I would still say like Daniel LaRusso might be maybe the weakest. The head sculpt looks good, though. And because, again, like they are using the exact same body, if you were to bring back in, speaking of which, Daniel LaRusso, same torsos, yes, same as well, same sleeves, and also as well, they've got also the belt and the lower legs are all identical with one another, which again, like, isn't a big thing for me. I mean, obviously, if it means that we get more figures, use as much of the mold as you guys possibly can. Feet are also sculpted the exact same, which means that the placement of the pegs are also in the exact same spots. So again, you can just attach onto the display stand that's provided. I don't feel like he necessarily looks too young or too old. They've just landed, I feel, the right age here for Chozen. Skin, though, is nicely colored. I mean, again, you got for something so small like the eyes like this, which, by the way, as well, you can see he's looking off to the side, which really, again, if you want to have the figure kind of posed, kind of have the head slightly tilted, and it has this really neat look of having him kind of looking off to the side like this. The eyebrows, the lower, smaller lips like this are all painted very well. There's no real paint problems at all I can see on this figure. Of course, when you get to the lower half of his body, my guess is that they probably would have just molded this and then gone back and painted in things like the neck, for example, because it would have been a lot less work than having to paint the entire gi. For the figure's articulation, though, Chozen's going to have the same as all the other Cobra Kai figures. Head's going to be on a ball joint, so it allows the head to rotate all the way around. The head looks down about that far. It looks up, and you can also slightly rock it back and forth, too. As for the arms, I wouldn't say easily rotate. As you rotate them, you can kind of feel there's resistance. They squeak. They creak. You can also as well bring the arms out at 90 degrees. There is a swivel cut right here where the bicep would be, and you can rotate it right there. The figure does have a double hinge on the elbow, also right there, and the hands do rotate all the way around. Like with all the other cases as well, let's get the arms just a hinge down. There we go. The upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. Gives you a full rotation happening. Although the lower waist is, again, a very stiff swivel. Legs split out. The lower end of the gi actually is a softer plastic, so it makes things very easy, in fact. And they also put a little slit on the side, so you can split the legs pretty far, in fact, on all the figures. There's also 3/4 of the way up the thigh a swivel cut, so you can rotate the leg all the way around. Again, it's going to squeak a little bit. The legs do also have a double hinge on the knee. And with all the other cases as well, he has a hinge back and forth on his feet and an ankle rocker as well. Because you'll also see as well the back of the legs run pretty low, it kind of throws off a little bit of the standing problems, or causes some of the standing problems when you get the figures to actually be level-footed. But again, like when it comes to Chozen, he seems to be one of the better figures, even though ironically enough he's using essentially the exact same mold. He seems to be one of the better figures to stand. Again, bringing back in Johnny Lawrence, I would, again, feel my top 2 favorite figures we've gotten from Cobra Kai thus far, is Chozen and then Daniel LaRusso. And maybe even, again, putting it, not Daniel LaRusso, Johnny Lawrence. And then putting him in, I feel, in the order of the best sculpts, Chozen, Johnny Lawrence, John Kreese. Then I would probably maybe say Terry Silver, which again, Silver wasn't a bad figure at all. And then finally low at the bottom, unfortunately, Daniel LaRusso. Oh, Daniel. Nice looking figures though. You know, again, like with, even though, obviously when we looked at Terry Silver, decent looking sculpt, probably could have been improved a little bit. Unfortunately though, he was lacking all the accessories. It's ironic though that the sensei of the dojo Cobra Kai, the one that owns and runs the show, didn't come with any weapons. One good thing at least though, that Chozen had as many weapons that he has, and he only has really 2 hands to hold them, is that he has extra weapons to go around. I think, if anything, Terry Silver might end up stealing some of those, similar to the way he stole back Cobra Kai. While Chozen may not have won the respect of his uncles Sato and Karate Kid 2, the one thing though the character does win in is the best likeness so far from the Cobra Kai line. I think not only does he look the most like the actor, but they also have aged him just the right way as well. Like Terry Silver, one of my big takeaways from the character was the fact that I felt his face was way too smooth. They needed to maybe make him a little older than what he actually appears in the figure, but you know, Chozen though does things just right. Granted, though, to do things just right, it means that from the neck down, they're using the same body as both Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence, but that's not a bad thing at all. I always really advocate that if a company can get more mileage out of their molds, and it benefits collectors, meaning that we can then get more figures from that, that's not a bad thing at all. I mean, gis are gis. I mean, yes, there were a few little changes. I think actually Silver's has a different gi top than what we actually get here for Chozen. So again, they are changing some of the molds. They're not going to be consistent all across the board. Chozen also benefits from having a lot more accessories at his disposal as well. More accessories than he'll ever be able to carry around on his own. He also comes included with a Miyagi-Do display stand, which, funny though enough, is different from Daniel LaRusso's. Looking though at Chozen's and the way they outline the border and make the font of Miyagi-Do, as well as the symbol of the bonsai tree, bigger on his stand, makes me then look at Daniel LaRusso's, and which the Daniel's was the exact same. Might not always have the figures displayed on the display stands, but though if I decide to do that, I also have the benefit of an adjustable neck that plugs onto the side of it that can also peg on the back of the figure's body. You know, again, if you want to have the figures in a more, again, karate kicking pose, you can pull it off a lot better by the use of the display stand adjustable neck. Just though be careful, because at least with mine from Chozen, I find like the screws are way too tight. I'm going to have to loosen those up a little bit, which is though funny because sometimes you'll either have to loosen them up in a case like Chozen's, or sometimes if you have a slightly older display stand, a lot of times you may have to go back and tighten up the screws, as over time, of course, they develop a little bit of looseness. Of the figures that we've looked at so far from the Cobra Kai, now again, we've just gone back to this line with the now released Chozen and Terry Silver. What do you feel has been the best likeness that Diamond Select have captured for the character? Also, speaking of Diamond, I'd like to thank the folks over at Diamond Select that did provide the sample of brand new Cobra Kai Chozen Toguchi that we had the chance to have a look at this review. Are you guys also excited for the brand new season of Cobra Kai? Which, as far as I know, again, they're splitting it up in 2 parts, giving a chance, a breathing break in the middle so that you can get the chance to watch the first part. Then they're probably going to leave it off with a cliffhanger. Can't even get that all, a cliffhanger. And then, of course, it will be continued on in part 2. Super excited for that. In the meantime, though, if you guys did want to certainly hit this video with a like, that is to say, of course, if you enjoyed the video, not tail hanging, cliff hanging. If you guys did want to stick around for more, though, make sure, though, you don't leave this on a cliffhanger by turning on as well the bell notification and hitting the subscribe button. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.